In this episode of the Well Aware podcast, we're joined by Kieran, an Aware Recovery Care alumni, for a candid conversation about alcoholism, recovery, and the hidden reality of high-functioning addiction. Kieran shares what it was like to appear successful on the outside while privately struggling with alcoholism, what ultimately led him to seek help, and the ways recovery has truly transformed his life. Let's get started.
Well, hello. Welcome back to the Well Aware podcast. I'm Dr. Lauren, board certified addiction psychiatrist, and also have the pleasure of being the chief medical officer here at Aware Recovery Care. And today I'm joined by Kieran, one of Aware Recovery Care's alumni, who is joining us for what I think will be a really important, honest conversation about what alcohol use disorder looks like and really high functioning successful professional people, challenges there, strengths there. So we don't talk about this a lot, and I'm excited to have somebody on to talk more about that journey. Kieran, we're so grateful you're here and willing to share your story. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's great to be here with you, and I'm always eager to share the good news. So there's hope on the other side, and I'm glad to be here.
And where does this podcast find you today?
I'm in my office up here in Litchfield, New Hampshire. So I've got a little office down the road from my home. I have some space in Boston too, but I'm here most of the time in New Hampshire.
Very nice. Very nice. So guys, just to set the stage, Kieran's story, I think, is an important one to share because it really challenges a lot of the assumptions that many folks have about addiction. I know when I was going through medical school, my vision of addiction was like gutter, brown paper bag, homeless person. But Kieran's a successful attorney, a husband, a very active member of his community. Really, I would imagine appeared from the outside to have everything together. Somebody folks would look to as probably a pillar in the community. And like many people, he showed up to work every day, even while battling some challenges. And so today he's here to share his story with others so they don't feel so alone in this addiction journey. So I think it's a great opportunity to talk more about this. Kieran, just to start us off, can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about yourself and what was like life for you day to day before you decided to seek help?
Yeah, I guess start with the first part. I'm here in southern New Hampshire. I'm married to a wonderful wife and have three beautiful children, 12, almost 13, and then 9 and 8-year-old boys. And everything is going great today. And, before sobriety, it was a different story. I mean, from the outside looking in, it was, I think, pretty run of the mill, a guy getting through his work day and probably doing some good work. Other days, not so good work, but most of the time, I think I was able to be successful and to, do good work. But there was a lot going on the inside, and it certainly was much more of a struggle for me. So, yeah, I couldn't be happier to be on the other side of it and happy to talk about it here with you.
Well, I'm sure as an attorney, you carried a lot of responsibility, both professionally and personally, with a very busy family and kids, which I know is like a whole separate job, probably maybe your most important job. Do you, sometimes when I speak with professionals in recovery, I wonder, do those professional accomplishments and the confidence that comes with it, maybe in the beginning make it easier to convince yourself, hey, I got this. This is not a problem. Other folks are wrong. Do you see that as a struggle that you had or that other folks, professionals have when it comes to seeing themselves through their own addiction journey?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I can speak better, of course, of my own experience, and I don't think I had any expectations particular to my own struggle with alcohol. It was more like it was such a shock to me, and and I never got past the shock. It was like I couldn't believe that this. Once you find yourself in the battle of addiction, I don't know. For me, it was this disbelief that that's where I was. Yet it was an inner acknowledgement that I couldn't do it differently. I was in the prison, right? They speak of addiction as a prison, and it really is. And so I was stuck. And that didn't know where to turn, didn't know what to do differently, and yet trying to row the boat somehow. And day after day of the same battle that was, essentially not going anywhere. So it was certainly a challenge. And I don't know, for people that I've encountered, I see a lot of people that you see are struggling, and there's really not a sense of their own. I don't perceive that they have a sense of being stuck, even though, having gone through it, kind of they're in the same spot. So yeah, it's a tricky battle for sure.
And it sounds like one of the striking pieces of your story, which is maybe not particularly unique, but I still think worth kind of touching on, is how few people knew what was really going on. Was that something that made the initial struggle or maybe decision to seek help harder, with having so few people kind of seeing the whole picture of how you were struggling?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the common threads of addiction generally, right? Is that the person going through it, there's two problems. One is the person going through it is the one who experiences it and really knows, so to speak, what's going on in terms of, think of it as the medicine, right? Or the dosage, right? You know what you're taking in for the most part. Nobody else really does. You know how bad the problem is, but then you're also the one suffering from the disease. So you have no real sense of what you're doing to yourself. You're keeping track, but you're really not capable of keeping track. You don't know the damage that you're doing, but you're trying to get by. And so it's really hard to fight the battle, because it was so internal. And that's kind of, I think it's a piece that's like really dark while you're in it, but when you're on the other side, it's such good news, because everyone goes through it and alone in a way. And addiction is, you're on your own, you're in this prison, you don't know how to get out, but you don't have to be. That's the great news, is that so eminently solvable. You just need to reach out, you just need to get help. You can't do it on your own, and that stinks. It's really hard, but you can do it with help, and all you have to do is put your hand up.
I love that. Such a great message of hope. When it comes to help, this is a question I'm always fascinated by, because I get just such different answers from different people. But was there one particular thing, maybe incident, a conversation, or something that you can pinpoint where that made your decision, that kind of pushed you over the edge to say, okay, it's time for me to get help now? And I say it's fascinating because for some people, it's something really catastrophic, like a job loss or injury. And then for other people, it can be something seemingly really small. So I'm wondering kind of what was that moment like for you, or series of moments if it was a couple of things.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like all the feels going through me now, thinking about the different things that happened. As I was sitting thinking about this conversation and trying to think through some of the things we might talk about, the first one I was reminded of is a wonderful man who was my mentor, very close family friend, and who kind of brought me up in the practice of law, but also into kind of manhood as I was a very young man when I first worked for him. And it was my first kind of real friendship among another adult man, or with another guy. And he was my dad's age, and my dad's close friend, actually. And so he was in recovery for many years. He was decades in when I first kind of got to know him as a grown person. But yeah, he was at my side through the whole thing, and with the experience of decades of recovery. So that was wonderful, and lots of stories there about campfire chats and things, that kind of where he was, pulling the string and making sure that I was aware of, where it might go if it went badly, and also that he was there for me if it did. But at the end of the day, he knew it was bad. And he's one of the people who, from the outside looking in, knew exactly what was going on. And yet he was at my side the entire time. So it was an enormous gift in my life, his friendship and his mentorship.
Sounds almost like a second father.
He was, yeah. Yeah, I miss him. I mean, we lost him a few years ago, almost 8 years ago now, but wonderful man. Still close with his son, who's a good friend. And yeah. But
my favorite part of what you just said was him kind of walking you through. It sounds almost like, the Christmas Eve story, where it's like the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas future, who comes and says, this is what your life will look like. And Scrooge is like, it almost sounds like he was like your ghost of Christmas future, who visited and said, gosh, I know the real you. Here's what this could turn out to be. But unlike in the movie, the real ghost of Christmas future doesn't offer much consolation. It sounds like this guy, as the ghost of Christmas future, was saying, and it's okay if it gets to there. I'm still here, which is the part I love best about that.
Yeah, it was the hard kind of love, right? I mean, there's the easy, soft love, and then there's the love that's, causes sacrifice. And he was there for me when it wasn't easy for him, and wasn't easy for his business, and what was a business that I was a part of. And yeah, so that was wonderful. And my dad and mom, always giving love, of course, and my wonderful wife, who was there. And you asked about like specific moments, and yeah, I remember one day when we were expecting our third child. Sarah was she's probably like 7 months pregnant, and it was another one of those nights where things weren't good in the house, and that was because of me. And it wasn't like there was nothing dramatic that happened, but it was just another, night where drinking was a factor. And I remember walking upstairs and she was just in tears, and just, it was just more than she could handle. And it was probably, as much a lot of other stuff as it was whatever was going on with me, but I was a leading factor. And that was, I can still feel what it felt like to see her going through that. And that was the moment when I realized I'm causing so much pain, and for what? For my own, to anesthetize myself, to not feel things. I couldn't even figure it out. It's just, I don't want to make someone else feel like that.
Sure.
Never mind how I was feeling. I wasn't feeling great, of course, but it was just so palpable, that was pain that I was causing, or that my condition was causing.
Sounds palpable, and also a powerful motivator for you, as you look back now and kind of point to that moment. And sometimes our most painful experiences can be the most powerful. It's not when your hand is close to the stove, it's the time that you touch the stove when it's hot that you truly learn, like, oh my gosh, not doing that again. So it sounds
Yeah,
like
right.
that emotional pain, you turned that into a really powerful motivator for positive change, really.
Yeah.
For a lot of professionals, privacy can be a big barrier and a big concern. Was that something that you thought about when you were deciding to seek treatment, and or that influenced the type of treatment that you ultimately received?
So privacy was a factor. Like, I didn't want anyone to know what I was going through. And that was in part because I was just so ashamed. But I was so it was a unique situation. I was very low on the totem pole at the time when it happened. I mean, I was in my career, and I had lots of colleagues and people in and outside of my own organization, and had I thought, a fair reputation. So I certainly didn't want it getting out that I was, struggling with alcoholism, or, needed to go into treatment. For sure, that was a major concern. Like, that would not have been good for me or for anyone. But on the other hand, I was kind of uniquely, like, not very public. I wasn't, I was the young lawyer on cases who was, second chair, as we say sometimes, or third, or not even like in a chair. I was in the back. It was in the back room, kept me locked up. But yeah, it was important to not have it out in public. Now it's like, I'm out. I love telling people that's what I went through, and mostly because, I want people who are going through it now to know that it gets better. It gets so much better, and if you just get help.
I love that. Along those same lines, what does currently, kind of looking at your life today, what do you think being in recovery makes possible in your life that would not have been possible with the continued presence or relationship with alcohol?
I mean, is everything too generic too boring of an answer? I mean, everything. It makes everything possible. It makes today possible. It makes this conversation possible. It makes, I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but like, getting up this morning and getting a workout in, pretty good, even though I was short on time, making sure I checked in with all of my kids, and had a conversation with my wife before I got out the door, and dropping the kids off at school. I mean, everything, right? And then banging out a couple things before we started this conversation. Yeah, it makes everything possible. Sobriety for me is the key. It's the sine qua non, right? It's the thing that if you take it away, everything is a wild card. And you're just rolling the dice. And so, I had this part of a Thursday night meeting. It's a virtual session. It's actually called Soba Golf. We should talk about it sometime.
Yeah.
You've heard of the Soba Golf?
Right. I was going to say, tell me about Soba Golf.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so there's a group of guys and women who are all either sober or sober curious, who are all interested in golf. They share like love of the game, or just kind of newfound recreation in the game or whatever, and also are sober or sober curious or in recovery. And you got people who are literally thinking about, do I need to give this up, to people who are 50 years in. Yeah, so anyway, where I was going is, we had a session just the other day where we talked about, how people who had decades, a couple of guys who had two different stories, each of these people had decades of sobriety. And, for some reason or another, people that they knew, some reason or another, decided to have a drink or use, and it went south so fast. So it's just, and in any meeting room, right, you hear these stories where like people with a lot of time, they can go bad, and it doesn't take more than a touch.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, so sobriety makes it all doable.
You guys play golf, and then you mentioned session. Do you kind of have a meeting afterwards that's recovery themed, or
Yeah, so there's not a lot of in-person golf yet. That's the target though. And there's so much momentum with Soba Golf. It's wonderful. I'm close with the founder, who's a wonderful guy, Corey Davis has put the whole thing together, and it's kind of his brainchild. And so it's essentially an online community where people get to know each other. And the whole goal of the thing is for people to get together physically to play golf, to have small group sessions and meetings and play and talk. There's been a couple of retreats so far, which are amazing. I have not been able to go on one. There was one down in Streamsong in Florida, and then in September there's going to be an Ireland retreat where they go play multiple rounds a day, and then all sit around a fire and drink their club sodas or NAs or whatever. And we just had a great session here in Massachusetts. I'm in New Hampshire, but just down the road, with about 20 guys from New England who had never seen each other before, except on a Thursday night meeting. And we got together and played a round of golf, and then had a great meal afterwards, and everybody shared their stories and had some good laughs.
Wow. What I love about that concept is that, I mean, golf is something that's, I feel like, such a uniquely male bonding experience. Not exclusively, there are females that play, but probably more males than females, and it's very bonding. And also, it tends to be very alcohol saturated. And so not having like an outlet to do this bonding experience that doesn't include alcohol would like really leave out a lot of amazing folks in recovery. So I love this Corey Davis's guy idea of bringing folks together, maybe male and female, to do something that's really enjoyable and that you exercise with and you're outdoors with, in a way where you don't have to feel uncomfortable, around alcohol. So that's great.
Yeah, and you touched on a couple of the key components. I mean, there's so many parallels between. I could talk about golf and sobriety for days, so cut me off at any point. But there's so many great parallels between the game or experience of golf and the experience of sobriety. And you touched on a couple of them: being outside, being in nature, socialization aspect. There's all the talk of in recovery of, if you're on your own, you're on your own. But if if you have a friend or a companion in sobriety, then you're going to do a lot better. And that's for sure true in my experience. And sort of the motto of Soba Golf is one swing at a time. And that's something that, like, it's like one day at a time, of course, but that's real in golf, right? You can't dwell on that last mistake. And if you do, I just did it yesterday. I play a fair amount of golf. I let a bad shot get into my head, and then I lost some confidence, and I made two more bad swings after that. And it wrecked what would have been a good round. And just like in life, right? Like, what's the strategy? You can't dwell on that mistake. You better figure out, accept it, right? Acknowledge it, move on. There's like, I don't know, we could go on for hours about the parallels between golf and sobriety, but most importantly, I think it's great that he's doing this because it brings people together to share in the struggle of recovery in a fun way.
Yeah. Yeah. And can folks find, for our listeners, is there a website where they can find out?
So Soba's great on social. There's a big Instagram following, and there's also a Discord. The Instagram, I think, is like almost 40,000 followers now, which is incredible.
Okay.
And the Discord is, I would say there's like 25 or 3,000 people. I might be getting those numbers wrong, or they might be old, but you can just register and get into the Discord and be part of the conversation. And then anybody who's in the Discord can join the Thursday night meeting, and it's Thursday at 8 Eastern.
Okay.
And, we started almost 2 years ago now, or Corey started, I should say, and I kind of just started joining. But there were, 2 or 3 guys when it started, and now we've got 25, 30, sometimes even closer to 40 men and women on this session. And usually there's a share, and then there's somebody who shares their story for 10, 15 minutes. And then everybody has a chance to say hello and share something on their mind. So it's wonderful.
Gosh, yeah. I could go, as a doctor, I could go on about how great that is. I think the thing that comes to mind briefly is sometimes with clients or patients, they're reticent to openly join a group that is maybe forward facing, all about recovery. But in this way, I think you have both. You have the golf, shared interests, sports, and so it might not be as intimidating to someone who is maybe just questioning their relationship with alcohol or substances. It sounds like you mentioned there's people in what we would call all the stages of change, like,
Yeah.
contemplating, maybe I have some challenges with alcohol, to like, okay, I definitely do, but I'm not sure what I want to do about it yet. Let me hear what these folks have to say, all the way to folks like you who've gone through that journey and are on the other side and, kind of maintaining and still treading water. So it just sounds like a welcoming experience that would be easier to convince, I think, men and women to join.
Yeah, it's a great point. That I hadn't thought of that kind of makes it easier for people to join. And I think like the proof is in the pudding. It has happened. Like I can tell you about a couple of people who that's exactly what happened. They came in when they were in the thick of it. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had someone who I remember joined a meeting and it was not a good time for this person. And couple of weeks ago he celebrated a year. So yeah, so it's like, and I'm sure that's happening too. Like that's going on right now, like in the community. So it's pretty amazing, and what Corey's doing is incredible.
Yeah, it sounds like it just makes it a very doable first step, and with an additional attraction of this game that so many people just love. I mean, my husband's obsessed with golf. I told him when we first met, like, it doesn't speak to me. And he was like, well, it speaks to me, so you got to be okay with
Yeah, right.
But it's from an outsider looking in who doesn't play golf, but is married to somebody who we have a golf sim in our basement.
Amazing.
That'd be the appeal for men of this group specifically. So I'm just so happy to hear about all this.
Yeah, come on into one of the Thursday meetings. Everybody's welcome, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, for someone listening who may be struggling in silence right now, or even a loved one who may be watching somebody struggling, especially someone who feels like they maybe have too much to lose for asking for help, or too much to lose in talking to that person, what's one thing you really want them to hear? What's your take home?
Yeah, let me start with, I'll take it, I think I took it in the order that you asked. I think if I got this right. One is life is so much better without substances. If you're someone, or if your loved one is someone who's struggling and is in the prison of addiction or substance, or just having, not living up to their potential because of somewhere on the range of substance use disorder, life is so much better without it. My life is like, I cannot calculate the extent to which it's better now. It's unbelievable. Every aspect of my life is better, certainly healthier, certainly happier, and every relationship that matters to me is better. And, isn't that kind of like, when it boils down to it, those are pretty important things. And then all the other stuff is better too, of course, but that kind of just flows, I think, from being healthy, being happy, and having good relationships. And sobriety makes that stuff possible. So I would say to anyone facing that, get help, find a way. Put your hand up and say, I need help. And don't be ashamed, and don't ever be ashamed, because there's people in every corner of the world, in every office building, in every boardroom, who have this struggle that you're going through. And it's not you, it's the disease. And you can beat yourself up until the cows come home, and it's not going to get you anywhere. So put your hand up, say, I need help. And there's so much help out there, help of all different kinds, and the help will help. So yeah, I would say ask for help and you'll get it.
I love that. I love the take home of everything is better, because it really just distills it down. And you're saying the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, if you ask for help, like, the juice is worth the squeeze immensely with everything that's most important in life.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Kieran. I think your willingness to share your story and really speak honestly about the realities of addiction and also the joys of recovery will just undoubtedly help so many people feel less alone. So we're so thankful for you coming on with your busy schedule. For folks listening, that's all for today's episode of the Well Aware podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. We're available anywhere you get your podcast. Take care and be well.
Thanks, Lauren. Great to be with you.